Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Trust that you had a good lunch and you're not going to fall asleep because we'll make it exciting for you, yeah? Dinosaurs and dragons. I suppose dinosaurs are fascinating, aren't they? Perhaps dragon is probably mystical to some aspect, yeah? But the question is, are dinosaurs the same as dragons? Probably that's one question you have before you come here. And how do we explain them from a biblical perspective? I think that's even more important. So, this is really the subtitle. I think the one published in the booklet is a little bit different from what we have. So we're going to go and discover the footprints in the Bible together. So, I think these are possibly some of the questions that you might have. Did God create dinosaurs and dragons? Were they on the ark? Did they die out 65 million years ago, which is purported in the secular history? What is dinosaur? Why is dinosaur not mentioned in the Bible? The word dinosaur. Yeah. Those are all valid questions. How many of you have those questions? Don't be shy. I got those questions as well. So, we have questions. Now, in 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 5, Paul says this, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalted itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. So those questions, if not answered, they cause doubt. Doubt means we generate our own imagination, our own answers to those questions, right? So we don't want to do that. We want to go to the Bible and discover what it means. Now, I have a very bad testimony for you here from this guy called Tom Holland. He said this, first, there were dinosaurs. I vividly remember my shock when I opened a children's Bible and found an illustration on its first page of Adam and Eve with a breakage sore. 6 years old I may have been, but of one thing, I was rock solid certain. No human being had ever seen a sauropod. A faint shadow of doubt for the first time had been brought to darken my Christian faith. I think this is an exaggerated claim, because I remember as a 6-year-old, I wasn't even rock solid on anything, but he was rock solid on dinosaurs. And he hasn't even gone through, the university education yet. Yeah? So this is something which is bad. This is an unfortunate admission that he was misled by probably the world's imagination through the media or something like that, and he had questions that he did not follow up in the Bible. He chose the secular consensus and atheistic worldview, and therefore he got lost along the way. So we have a website. If you want to type in dinosaurs, you'll find a lot of articles on it. Very rich, very, very, very good articles on dinosaurs. I'm going to skip all those promotion and go to the point. This is an AI-generated image. It's a lion and a tiger, which are also symbols of the Singapore and Malaysian soccer team respectively, right? They're the cat family. Now, are you aware that the first pair of ancestors once represented a very good creation as a cat ancestor in Adam and Eve's time? As a result of the corruption in Eden and the fall, these animals also fell and become predators. Now the question is, can they be vegetarian or tame, not devouring one another? They can, because we have an article in Creation Magazine on this one. Tigers and pigs together. This is in Siracor Zoo in Thailand, where cubs are fed with pig and tiger's milk. Yeah? It's a very interesting one. So you go to Thailand, you visit that zoo and have a look at those pigs and tigers living together. They form a very symbiotic relationship, happily exist together side by side without killing each other. Now, this sort of incidences of this sort of article affirm that they were once vegetarians. Okay? All animals were vegetarians after they were created, including human beings. There's enough dietary supplements in the plants that God created for us to live according to God's plan. Yeah? It was only after the flood that God opened up the avenues for us to eat animals, because certain plant species the remaining diet for us to live our life according to what God's planned. So he opened up the diet of animals. And there's another article here on on Leah the spaghetti lioness. So this particular lion doesn't eat animals. You can feed any kind of meat to this particular lioness. It will not take it. It will just take vegetables like spaghetti. In fact, it loves spaghetti very much. So then the question we want to ask ourselves is, what about dinosaurs and dragons? Because from the celluloid screen, it depicted to us that they are all very ferocious animals, right? Particularly this one here, which is called Dracorex. It is extremely fierce looking. So what kind of animal is it? Is it a carnivore, herbivore, or omnivore? How many of you say carnivore? No one. Herbivore. Yeah, we have a few. What about omnivore? Quite a lot, yeah. That's a safe bet, isn't it? You have both worlds. Dracorex is actually a vegetarian. Here, it looks very fierce, but actually eat vegetables only, or vegetation. So even after the fall, certain dinosaurs remain as herbivores. So they eat only vegetation. I want to say that sharp teeth here indicated in the skull, inside the skull, or between the skull, is not necessarily meant for meat eating. It could be for cracking seeds, like the fruit bat, cracking seeds, cracking fruit, or something else. Yeah, not necessarily for eating meat. Now, with a bit of imagination, this skull may lead someone to conclude it's a dragon. Okay, so there's an embellished, artistic license used to describe Dracorex as a dragon. So how do we differentiate a dinosaur from a dragon? We can follow the original text in the Old Testament and New Testament, the Hebrew text and the Greek text. Then we will find out there is a coherent story. Yeah. So I'm going to read to you from Revelation chapter 12, verse 9. And the great dragon, in Greek is Drakon, was cast out, that old serpent, Hebrew is Nakash, called the devil, Satan, which deceived the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Yeah? Now, dragon in the New Testament is used 13 times in 12 verses, all in Revelation, all pointing to Satan or the devil. Okay? Animals cannot talk. Animals cannot talk. But you find that animals in the Bible talk. Yeah? Either God make them talk like the donkey, or the serpent, the devil make the serpent talk. Okay? So Satan spoke through the old serpent in the Garden of Eden in Genesis 3, verse 1. It says that now the serpent Nakash was more subtle than any other beast Hayat of the field which the Lord has made. In Genesis 1, verse 21, and God created great whales and every living creatures, Nefesh Chaya, that moved with the waters brought forth, which the water brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl of Kanaf after their kind, and God saw that it was good. So on day 5, this is day 5, there are 3 broad classes of animals created. The Tanin, which is the swimming animals in the oceans, and also Nefesh Chayas in the water as well. Those are breathing through the nostrils. Then you have of Kanaf, which is in the air, the flying animals. Yeah? So 3 classes of animals created in the 5th day. Now, God does not give us a complete classification of everything, but these are the ancestral kinds. So these are accurate description of those animals that God created. And later on, because they reproduce among themselves after their kind, then they differentiate out into different species that we see today. So the original kinds were not too many. God created not too many, because God created in them the blueprint of reproduction. So they can actually multiply and diversify as God allowed them to, but within the kind, within a certain reproductive boundary that God has set. Let me give a couple of examples of the kinds on the 5th day, which are dino-like reptiles. They're gone extinct now. We can see them in the fossils. So the plesiosaur are the tanins, the pterosaurs are the of Kanaf. They are flying reptiles, and they are found in the fossils, so we can attribute them back to Genesis chapter 1, verse 21, in verse 21, in their creation in that 5. They created in that 5, in day 5. On the 6th day, however, God created the land animals. Yeah, land animals, terrestrial animals. So dinosaurs are land animals. Okay? They are either bird hip or lizard hip. There are 2 types of hip in dinosaurs by looking at the bones. Yeah? They are not birds or lizards, but they are reptiles. Okay? So dinosaurs are also reptiles. In Genesis 1, verse 25, when God made the beast Hayat of the earth after their kind, and cattle Behemah after their kind, and everything that creepeth called Remes upon the earth after this kind. And God saw that it was good. So God made and named only 3 broad classes of terrestrial animals as well, besides day 5. And all these nouns are singular, referring to each a collective grouping. That means they are the ancestral kind, Hayat, Behemah, and Remes. Okay, Remes are the creeping animals. They include, we believe they include the insects, the spiders, the centipedes, the millipedes, because these are the crawling animals. Now, the English words used to translate from the original language to English are very limited during the time of the translation, for example, with King James Version. So they use different names which may not exactly represent what God intended them to be represented. Yeah? But it's okay, because we have the original text to go through to help us to study correctly what they mean. So in Isaiah 27, verse 1, in that day the Lord with his sore and great and strong sword shall punish Leviathan, which the Hebrew word is Leviathan, the piercing serpent, Nakash, even Leviathan, that the crooked serpent Nakash, and he shall slay the dragon Tanin that is in the sea. Now the midpoint of the verse is actually the semicolon here. This mouse is not working for some reason. I can't point to you where it is. The first half of the verse is a semicolon there, which talk about the Leviathan and Nakash. They're the same thing, okay? They are the serpent, they are the, they are the same serpent. Then the dragon is different from the serpent, which is Tanin, which is living in the sea, okay? So we believe that the serpent is at one stage possibly a dragon, yeah, which is also mentioned just now in the New Testament text. Now, if you want to buy a book on the latest around dinosaurs and dragons, this is probably the book published by us, CMI, and it's in the text, in the book, it says dinosaurs are all reptiles. Yeah? But you have to order this book through Liju because we didn't bring it on stock here with us. So some of the features of reptiles are having scale, egg laying, dinosaurs are egg laying, regurgitation of the food that they've eaten, cold-bloodedness, three-chambered heart, and also leg bones. Yeah? So they are very special kind of reptiles, not the one that we see today. In Genesis 7:14, it says, they, that means Noah and family, and every beast, Hayat, after his kind, and all the cattle, Behema, after their kind, and every creeping thing, Rames, after the creepers on the earth, and after this kind, and every fowl after his kind, and every bird of every sort. So you remember these words are mentioned in Genesis chapter 1. They're mentioned here again in chapter 7, which Genesis chapter 7. That means these animals went into the ark. Yeah? They're all preserved in the ark. So dinosaurs are preserved in the ark. Okay? In Job 40, verse 15 to 18, behold now, behemoth, which I make with thee, he eateth grass like an ox. Lo now, his strength is in his loins, and his force is in the navel of his belly. So this is a very special animal being described by Job. When does Job live after the flood? About 700 years after the flood, Job was living then. So which means the dinosaurs, they survived in the ark, they came out, and they became animals together with mankind. So Job saw the dinosaurs. This is the one. Let me give you a few more descriptions, and then we'll move on to discuss what this animal is. He moved his tail like a cedar. The sinews of his bone, his stones are wrapped together. His bones are as strong pieces of brass. His bones are like bars of iron. Okay? So these are descriptive words to talk about these animals. These words they know during the time of Job. Okay? So the language is a bit limited to what we know today. So we probably won't describe this particular dinosaur with these kind of words. We describe probably with different kind of words. But I want to concentrate on tail like a cedar because it is very important to differentiate this particular animal with the rest of the animal in the God's kingdom. This is a cedar of Lebanon, Cedrus libani. It's actually a conifer of the pine family. Its height is up to 40 meters. Now, some commentaries say the animal in Job is actually an elephant, but elephant is only 3 meters tall. Yeah, so the tail cannot be that big. Yeah, the trunk is up to 2.5 meter width. The tree trunk is up to 2.5 meter width. So this is a very big cedar or tail, a tail which is described using cedar as an analogy. So a big elephant is 3 meters tall, and its tail is like ropes, right? Not like cedar. So let's say we have a tail of a cedar, and now we try to fit the animals onto this particular tail. First, let's fit the hippopotamus, which is part of the commentary in some of the commentary as well. I think this is too much of a tail to carry around by this hippopotamus, right? When you drag your tail on the ground, what does it mean? You injure your tail, right? You cannot drag your tail on the ground, yeah? You feel an elephant on it. Again, it doesn't work, yeah? So the way it only works is you feed a dinosaur. What kind of dinosaur? It has to be a sauropod dinosaur, a huge one, yeah? And you can see Job is there, drawn to scale. The force of the belly, the cedar-like tail, yeah? So this is the description used to describe this particular dinosaur. Behemoth is actually what we believe is a sauropod dinosaur. The biggest dinosaur, do you know what is the biggest dinosaur? What is the name of the biggest dinosaur? Dinosaurs, the big one, the biggest ever discovered. Of course, it's ever discovered. We do not know which is the biggest. It could be still buried under the earth, haven't been excavated yet. Now, just now, Julie and I also talk about what is experimental science versus what is historical science. Yeah. So now let's use this example as a learning lesson for all of us. There are two pieces of information there. One is the scientific name of this particular dinosaur. It's actually a duck-billed dinosaur. You can see the shape of the skull, the bone. The other piece of information is that it is 75 million years ago it died out. Yeah? So, what is experimental science? Which piece of information belongs to experimental science? That you can observe, that you can repeat it. The name. It's not a trick question, the name, right? Even though it's an artificial name we give to it, it's there. This piece of bone represents the duck-billed dinosaur. According to the name, the scientific name is Parasaurolophus. What a long name. So this name, artificially created for this particular dinosaur, is duck-billed dinosaur. Because the bone is not going to go anywhere, the bone is going to be there. It's something you can look at, you can test it, you can repeat it, you can observe it. Yeah? But the information which is historical science is the age. How do you know it's 75 million years ago? Were you there? You can ask the paleontologist, were you there? They weren't there. They would say we'll date the so-called rocks in which the dinosaur was buried, therefore we estimate. But how accurate is your dating technique? So Dr. Ron Allen will come and talk about that later on. So the fact is the bone, the operational science, and the historical science is the interpretation of the age that they died out 75 million years ago. Yeah? So that is not true. And I will show you a series of pictures now why this is not true. This is now, we're going to anthropology now, okay? So we'll go to somewhere which is very close to us, which is in Cambodia. This is in the Thaprom, in the Angkor Wat complex. There are many, many temples there. This particular temple is called Thaprom Angkor Temple. There's a carving on the panel of the temple, one of which is Stegosaurus. Yeah? So this is carved around 1200 AD, which is not far away from us in terms of the age. How do the temple artists knew that it is Stegosaurus? Do you think they have read a lot of scientific journals? I don't think so. It has to be an encounter that they had, either a recollection from the memory that it is a Stegosaurus. That's why possibly the front part of the carving is not so accurate. Yeah, they might have not remember too well how it looks like, but they remember the plates really well at the back of the particular dinosaur. So this is Stegosaurus. Now let's go to England now, England. And this is going back a bit in terms of the time, about 1500 AD. This is the tomb of Bishop Richard Bell in Carlisle, in the UK, northwest England. Now, underneath the blue carpet is his tomb. They use a carpet to cover it because foot traffic is just too heavy. And once you remove it, you see the tomb with the brass fillet running around the cover of the tomb. And so the blue carpet actually protects the tomb from being further wear and tear due to the visitors. Yeah? Now you remove the blue carpet, so you reveal the narrow brass there, which is here. I'm going to enlarge it for you. They have all sorts of animals being carved on that brass fillet, including these two animals locking their heads together. They are Shunosaurus and Volcanodon, based on identification. Yeah? So these are sauropod dinosaurs as well. Now the important thing about the know is the accuracy of the drawing, or they carve on the fillet. The tails are hanging in the air, right? This is the right depiction of dinosaur tail. They don't actually drag the ground, and therefore the dinosaur injured its own tail. That was the first picture in the 1800s when they first draw this, reconstruct these dinosaurs in drawings. They have the tail dragging the ground, which is not accurate. So this is more accurate than in the 1800s, which means that these people, they have close encounter with these animals. Yeah. Now let's go back a little bit further in 1600 or 1500 AD. This is in Mali. The Dogon tribe are very well known for making bronze sculptures. They make alligator, they make horses, they make all kinds of things. They make them riding on horses as well. So there's an adult on the left side and a child on the right side. They're riding on two different dinosaurs, Gryposaurus and Ouranosaurus, which means that they're in very close contact with these dinosaur animals. They kept them either as pet or for transportation purposes, or maybe doing some work as well. Now look again, the tail, accurately depicted as dinosaur tails hanging in the air rather than dragging the ground. So they are actually accurate pictures. That means they actually live with the animals during that time, yeah, or they are recollected from their memories of their ancestors doing this kind of work, and therefore make the bronze sculpture. Okay, so they are recent. They are not very old. Now let's go to China now. You probably know more China than I do. This is about 400 to 200 BC, when the zodiac was invented. There are 12 animals there which are literal animals which you see today. The 11 of them as we still see today, except one which is called dragon, right? Now dragon is very close to dinosaur, which is fierce dragon. Yeah? So dragon and dinosaur are synonymous with each other. Okay? It's just that before dinosaur is invented, dragon is the common word used to describe these animals. After dinosaur is invented as a scientific publication, it then gets promoted through the media. Dragon disappeared slowly into the scene. Dinosaur replaced the use of dragon in all the literature published after the 1800s. Let's stay in China and go to 2000 BC. This is in what is the place? There's a Hongshan culture in Inner Mongolia. That's right, Inner Mongolia. So spreading from Inner Mongolia to Liaoning province in the northern part of China, they are very good with jade. They mine jade and they make into animals, okay, different animals. So this particular animal they made is called Centrosaurus, and the other one is called Protoceratops. Extremely accurate. These are the juveniles of the two different dinosaurs. So they have encountered the animals and therefore they can make them, right? Or they can remember them. So at 2000 BC, probably they could still have animals there. Now today, you look at the literature in the scientific publication, a lot of dinosaur excavation are coming from China as well. Inner Mongolia, many of the different provinces have generated a lot of different kind of dinosaurs. About the same time, in Uruk, in Mesopotamia, they used cylinder seal to make imprint onto soft mud, and the soft mud becomes tiles which they used to put on the building. So these are the first early tiles making process using imprint of the cylinder seal. Now there are two animals there which are locking horn with each other, or locking head with each other. They're very unique animal because their neck is very, very long. Now if we do not know about dinosaurs, we would say these are probably fake animals because no animals have such a long neck except the giraffe. And their giraffe neck is very straightforward, right? One way. But this one is crooked. How can it be? So you dig a little bit deeper, you resurrect this particular dinosaur called Dinosaurs, which means long-necked dinosaur. Okay? So the learning is this up to this point. all the dinosaurs are associated with different cultures across the world. Even though we don't see them today, they left with these different cultures, artwork, bronze sculptures, or carvings of some sort, brass, on stones, or even making on blood, not blood, what is this? Mud, on mud. And then they use it to indicate that they have encountered these animals, plus all the other animals. Yeah, they do. So it cannot be all the other animals are real and these are mystical animals. These are real animals that they encountered in their real life. What about today? Do we have any encounter with dinosaurs today? We do have. Here is one in the research lab in Mary Schweizer's lab. It was exactly like looking at the size of modern bone. But of course, I couldn't believe it. I said to the lab technician, the bones after all are 65 million years old. How could blood cells survive that long? This is the red blood cells that Mary Schweitzer identified in a T-Rex bone. Still visible, the red blood cells. Later on, they discovered even more. They say, as a fossil dissolved, transparent vessels were left behind. Schweitzer says, I didn't believe it until we've done it 17 times. There was a lot of critique when she first published these results, that people don't believe it, say, you do it wrong, there's contamination and all sorts of things. But they did it 17 times, it is real. There are soft tissues, there are collagen as well, and the red blood cells, these are recent discovery of dinosaur left behind, or the remains. Yeah? Can they be 65 million years old? Cannot be. Okay? There are people who did accelerated tests as well, and most 100,000 of years, not so many millions of years. So this is what that leaves us with two alternatives for interpretation. Either the dinosaurs aren't as that old as we think they are, or maybe we don't know exactly how these things get preserved. I think both cases are right. They don't know how they are preserved. They also don't know the age of these dinosaurs. We know. Through the Bible, they all die out during the flood, except those on the ark. Yeah? So these are excavated from dinosaur graveyards. You know what dinosaur graveyards are? That means they are all dinosaurs died together in a big burial place. So these are all coming from the flood. Okay? Now, the dinosaur era is from the Triassic to the Cretaceous period, the green and blue part. Yeah? The extinction event is the end of the Cretaceous period to the Tertiary period. Okay? But all the fossils are deposited from the Cambrian, which is the bottom blue layer, right up to the Quaternary layer. Okay? And this is about 2 kilometers. And they say this period of time is something like 541 million years. Dinosaurs are about 220 million to about 65 million years old. Okay? Now you just do a calculation in your calculator. 2 kilometers divided by 541 million years. How many millimeters per year of sediments you receive? I think Dr. Ron Eller, we're going to talk about it later on. You'll find this an amazing number. Now, what is that extinction event? They have over 100 theories of dinosaur extinction, over 100 theories. The one they always go to for rescue is the meteorite impact. What they say is the meteorite coming from outer space impact on the Earth in Chicxulub, which is, I think, in the ocean north of Mexico, and therefore created a nuclear winter through the dust that enveloped the entire Earth, and therefore dinosaurs die out. Yeah? Then we ask the question, why is the crocodile remain on Earth? Why did it remain and didn't die out? Because crocodile is weaker than dinosaurs. Okay? So it didn't work. This theory didn't work with us as well. Now, nobody exactly know what the theory, the extinction theory is like, but we think it's a combination of factors. Hunting is really the last thing that has probably made the dinosaurs extinct. But the more important thing is this, that when dinosaurs came out of the ark, there was an ice age of about 500, 700 years. And that they're cold-blooded animals, so that pushed the dinosaur to limited areas. And human beings also multiplied at that time, so they occupied all the river delta system, the coastal areas, and the dinosaurs require swampy areas to live. Yeah? So these areas are being used up, and so the dinosaurs are being pushed to different places, and therefore they lost habitats. With the hunting, therefore slowly they all disappeared into the scene. Yeah? That's what we think is a more plausible theory than the meteorite extinction period. This is all the dinosaurs found so far have been catalogued, and this publication I can't read from here. You might not be able to read from there as well. It's probably around 2000. It's old, but I don't think it changed very much the picture. So there are solid lines pointing upwards, and also there are shaded lines and dotted lines. Okay, the shaded lines and dotted lines are what we call ghost images. Ghost images do not have real fossil associated with it. Yeah. So to do you a favor, we painted over these ghost image lineages with red and blue color. Now you can see the trees much better, right? So that's what they're trying to show us, that the original dinosaur kind or dinosaur ancestor was at the bottom. One dinosaur gave rise to so many types of dinosaurs, yeah, which we think is not correct. Now we remove those lines, those ghost images. That means we remove the historical science part. We only make the experimental science remain where we can see the bones and the fossils and the classification. Yeah. So this is what we have left. So what does it represent? A creation orchard. We call it a creation orchard because this is what it is. Creation is here and the flood is there, somewhere around there. Yeah. Because we don't really know how this thing is formed, but at most there are something like 50 kinds of dinosaurs on the ark, at most. Some even believe it's not more than 30 kinds. Yeah? So this is all we have about dinosaurs in terms of the classification. So they all die out outside the ark, and then they just faded in history. Okay? So really, we have 5 ages for dinosaurs. Not one dinosaur age between 220 million or 65 million years ago. They were created, they were formed or created 4,000 BC ago. They were fallen together after Adam and Eve sinned, about 4,000 BC. Then they were flooded out about 2,500 BC in Noah's flood. Then they were faded from history, and then they were found again as dinosaur bones about 1800 to the present. And dinosaur is invented by Richard Owen in 1841 to describe these big bones because they don't know what these animals are. Dinosaur means terrible lizards. Okay? The first dinosaur name is Iguanodon, which is a wrong name to use because this is a reptile is an amphibian, basically. So it's not really the right name to use on these animals. But that's what we have. So they are all scripturally supported. Of course, when we discover dinosaur bones, this is what we can see. We don't need the scripture to tell us, but we can go back to scripture and say they're created by God in day 6. They live in Adam and Eve as vegetarians, and then they were fallen, and some of them become carnivores. Yeah, that is the meaning of the whole reason around the name dinosaur and how it linked to dragon. We have the biblical worldview and biblical scripture to support it. In Romans 5 verse 12 it says, "Wherefore by one man sin entered into the world, and death by sin, and so death passed upon all men, and that all have sinned." So the Bible is trustworthy. the gospel begins at the fall of a very good creation. Yeah? And because of that we are also fallen, and gospel is for mankind, and therefore we can rely on the scriptures to tell us that we have a good God who give us, the dinosaurs give us creation to enjoy. Yeah? So next time when you evangelize, use dinosaur as your icon of evangelism. Say that they survived the flood, they just faded out. These are good conversation around dinosaurs. People want to listen to it. Do you know that the Bible talk about dinosaurs as well? So tell them. And you have the support of the Old Testament prophets, you have the support of the New Testament apostles, you have the support of Jesus Christ as well, because he is the Word of God. Okay. Magazine is out there. Talk to Li Ju, get you subscribe, which is good for the evangelism program. If there's one book you need to buy, is this book. Yeah? And I'm going to just leave this slide on and hand it over to the chair.